Welcome to State of Ed, a podcast about education inside the classroom and out. My name is Mark Isix, and I am here at the AMLE conference in Indianapolis, Indiana, and have the incredible fortune of being joined by the wonderful Rosalind Wiseman, a best-selling author of 9 books, including Queen Bees and Wannabes, the inspiration for the film Mean Girls, a leadership consultant for nearly 200 schools worldwide, a speaker, a thought leader, and an all-around force of nature. Ms. Wiseman, welcome to State of Ed Podcast.
Thank you.
So I just attended your keynote, and it was so impactful. And I know that the educators around me were all taking out their phones and taking pictures of so many of the different screens and slides that you put up. And I just wanted to share, at least start off by saying, how important the work that you're doing is and how meaningful it is for the educators that I know that I was surrounded with in the room.
Thank you.
And it was a palpable experience that we all shared.
Yeah.
So thank you so much.
I could feel it. I could feel it in the audience. I could feel it coming back at me from the audience. So it was really pretty cool.
Good. And so well deserved. So thank you. You're so talented. and for you to share your talents with us was really just a wonderful opportunity for us this morning. One of the things that really struck me in your talk this morning, and I wanted to ask you a question about it, you placed a lot of emphasis on dignity and social dynamics and peer culture as a lens for understanding schools and young people. Why are you so passionate about those particular elements?
Because I think that we feel that we have these intractable problems in our culture and our communities and our society. And actually, as significant and as real as those feelings are, I believe that there is a way through to solve and repair them. And I know that sounds crazy, but I really do. And it's really about being clear about listening to young people, listening to the people who work with young people, and also being able to admit what we don't know. And then being able to go to the people who are the experts of whatever it is that we don't know and asking them and earning their trust so they actually will tell us.
Humility is definitely sometimes a tough thing for educators, because the premise of what you're trying to do is be the lone voice of authority and leadership and knowledge and all of those things in a room of 25 or 35 or when I first started 37 students in a room, and that can be very daunting. So the need to at least create the appearance of kind of like infallibility and all-knowingness is kind of inherent in the role of what we think or perceive being a teacher is. And so what you're basically saying is like you want us to challenge that in a meaningful way to be able to push back against that expectation.
But it's really, it's hard because, you're given 35, this can happen with 20 or 15 young people, and you feel like everything that you've been told is you have to go in there and claim the space, right? And claim it in a particular way, which is domination and authority. And what I really look at is, what does authority look like to young people? And what is authority that they actually pay attention to and take seriously? And what is authority that maybe they appear to be following? But there's a lot of times when young people have the experience of somebody being in a position of authority who demands it, and they just absolutely fight back. And then you're in a power war with your students, and you are not going to win this. Right. Even if you like come down on them super hard and they're in their seats and they're, not making it, they look like they're compliant, you're not actually teaching.
Right.
And I think that's I know teachers, have understandable reasons for being frustrated. And we actually have to realize that lots of times the way we were taught to teach actually doesn't work.
It's funny that you say that, because as a school administrator, one of my most treasured opportunities to work with young teachers and try to help support them as they're learning the ropes. And it's very difficult to learn how to teach well and be a great educator. And I think it's only gotten more difficult to be able to do that, frankly, compared to where I started off 30 plus years ago. It was it was a bit of a nightmare, but I was able to kind of fake it until I made it.
Me too.
There's just not, you don't have that runway or that on-ramp anymore. And
can I stop you for a second?
Course.
Because I think a lot of people would say, oh, well, it's technology. The reason that it's harder for a teacher is because of technology. And I actually think that we do not talk about that parents do not trust teachers.
Interesting.
The way that, now for better and for worse, right? Because sometimes in the past, parents would say, like, if your teacher said this, then that's the way it is, and and we're done. And sometimes that really was not okay. But what I'm talking about is that the runway that you're referring to is so short, because I think that a lot of people in the teacher's orbit, they go from like thinking that maybe the teacher is okay to not trusting the teacher like that. And so I actually think that issue of we don't have a runway because we're not trusting each other is a really important part of this.
So what's the solution to that? Because new teachers and experienced teachers are going to make mistakes, and mistakes, of course, do take a hit. Trust takes a hit when mistakes come around.
But but trust is built when a teacher says, "Oh, I made a mistake there." And I'm going to work really, really hard to address it. And you're going to see actions that reflect that, right? It's not just me saying that. And it's true that a lot of teachers have a really hard time saying, I made a mistake, or I don't know. Right. I don't know. And one of the most powerful things you can say to a child is when they ask a question, when you don't know the answer, is, actually, I have no idea what the answer is, but we're going to go find out together.
Right.
That is a powerful, powerful teaching moment that actually completely generates real authority for the teacher in the classroom.
And that goes back to what I was saying before, which is one of the things I'll suggest to a newer teacher is, if you have to tell the students who the alpha is in the room, then it's not you.
Yeah, that's for sure.
And I use the example of, animals and then the animal kingdom. Yeah. They can't speak, but they know who the alpha is. And it's just the energy and the way that you treat people. We have teachers that I've had the good fortune of knowing who are just the kindest, most compassionate, warmest people. And their voice never really ever goes about this. And they have complete control. They are the alpha 100%. Yeah. There's not a student in the room who doesn't know who
Who's not clear. I mean, they're right. And like, kids are always going to, I frequently come in as a new person, so I have to earn the trust. I'm always earning trust with young people. And what I do, for example, when I'm working with a group of kids, and there's like a group like of 8th graders, for example, and they're like whispering or doing this thing kind of thing. Sure. And, there's one way of being like, girls, we don't talk like that. We don't whisper, right? And being all like soft and weird, and they're going to laugh at you and not take you seriously. Or the other one of like, we don't do this, right? Which they're not going to listen to. I tend to do something like, oh, that thing you're doing right there, that is like really messing with my vibe for the classroom, so that can't happen.
Right.
And usually that stops it. And it's very fast. I don't like stop the girls and like, we're going to have this big conversation. Right. It's like, oh, yeah. No, not going to happen. It really messes with me. And I can't have it.
Right.
So are we good? Great. Let's move on.
Right. You're just establishing where the boundary is, and everything in here is fair, and everything out here is not going to fly.
Yeah. And if they continue, it's not like a magic bullet where like, oh my gosh, Ms. Wiseman, I will stop doing this. I mean, they might continue to do it. And if they do, on the rare, 20% of the time that they do, I, late up, be like, hey, Mati, can you come like hang out with me for a couple seconds? Which of course, they're going to be like, oh my God, she wants to talk to me. And then you're like, Mati, I can't have you like mess around like that. Like, I just can't. I can't. And so you and I have to have an agreement. Like, I'm asking you for agreement. I'd like to make an agreement with you. Let's try and create that agreement. If she can't manage herself after that, there's something going on with that child that is way beyond like the social dynamic that's right there. And we need to be able to help that child.
Right. Absolutely. Can you share an example where a teacher or a school has reframed relationships with students through a dignity lens, and what changed as a result?
One of the things I do is I create with schools student voice committees. So that's different from student councils. They don't do events. They don't, make announcements in assemblies. They are strictly there to communicate with the administration or specific faculty people about things that are happening in the school and how are the students responding to it. So it could be anything from like a scheduling change to neurodiversity day, and it didn't go well last year and we want to make it better. So the person who's in charge of that comes and talks to them. Or it could be, well, in this case, bathroom vandalism is a problem all over the world, right? There's not a school that has not had bathroom vandalism. Like, And TikTok has videos of like kids doing particular things, and then it starts to replicate everywhere, right?
Exactly
right. Like all of a sudden, every bathroom in middle school looks exactly the same with toilet paper, right? It's like, right. So, and God, some of the bathrooms in our middle schools and high schools, the doors are they're too short, right? There's too much space in between, so kids can go underneath and like embarrass a kid or lots of fun, right? So, Student Voice Council, I was working with a group of high school students, and there was a lot of vandalism in the bathroom, and we wanted to address it. And one of the things that I think is really prevalent for this generation of young people is that they don't want to be lectured to about something that happened that was wrong in the school if they didn't have anything to do with it, right? They do not feel that they should be sitting in an assembly being yelled at by a principal because of some other thing that another group of kids did. They get so angry about it. I mean, it's somewhat understandable, but it's also a place of like, but we have responsibilities in this community that when something is falling apart, it actually replicates, right? Like the janitorial staff has large consequences to them because of something like that. This is a community issue. So we had the Student Voice Council, and we had this problem in the bathrooms, and they worked really, really hard to present in front of their peers, which was really scary. And they had the janitorial staff come and talk about it and what the concert, like how late they had to, stay.
Put a human face on it.
Yeah. Right. The whole thing. Now the kids knew that if they presented, that it was very likely that some other students in the space were going to laugh and snicker and not take it. It looked like they're not taking it seriously. So they identified that. They prepared for it, of like what they were going to do when this happened.
Smart.
So they did that. And I'm actually there by video. Like they put the little phone on the stage so I could watch what was happening, because I was so proud of them for doing this. And what happened, right? There was a group of kids that started snickering and stuff like that. So as the students who are in charge of this presentation start to handle it the way they've been trained, a teacher gets so angry at what's happening.
The unplanned thing.
That she grabs the microphone out of the student's hands. And she starts screaming at all of these kids.
I'm so uncomfortable right now.
Right? I mean, can you imagine? I'm like sitting at a table. Right? Like sitting there being like, no! It had been going beautifully. Everything had been going so beautifully. It was so beautiful. I was like, oh my God. It's one of those moments of like, what I do actually works. I'm so proud of these kids. And she just starts screaming. And she does this thing that sometimes teachers do when they get really dysregulated, where they start screaming and then they say things like, what are you missing? Or what is missing? She's waiting. So some kid in the audience goes like, empathy. I mean, it was literally like, what could go wrong? Right. It was so, and then she was done. She sort of blew herself out and she handed the microphone back to the student.
Oh, boy.
And then the student is like,
right. I think that's a tough act to follow.
Thank you for listening. Right. Okay. So this happens. And the kids are so angry that are part of the group. They worked so hard. They were embarrassed. They didn't want to be associated with this teacher. They thought, oh my gosh, the kids are going to think this teacher was somehow connected to us. Like, we want her to go. This is the answer to your question. So we met with them afterwards. We're like, well, what do you want to do? And they said, we want her to go in front of the entire school and apologize, like at the next assembly, like tomorrow. We want an assembly. We want her in front of the whole student body, and we want her apologizing for what she did. I was like, okay. And, this is about voice, but you also don't always get a vote, right? You don't just, this is this adult-child relationship that we're in, right? So I was like, okay. So do you think that's treating her with dignity? And they were like,
great line.
Oh, they're like, oh, Miss Wiseman, right? I'm like, I'm just saying, like, what she did, and this is how we can separate, like, what she did. I don't respect what she did. I'm not asking you to respect what she did.
Right.
I don't admire that. I don't respect it. I'm asking you to treat this person with dignity in this moment. How do you want to do that? And so they said, well, we want to talk to her. And I was like, okay. That sounds like a good plan. And also, why don't we write down all the things you want to say beforehand so you can choose one or two things instead of the 400 things that you are angry about, so that when you see her, it's not overwhelming.
Right.
And then they met And then this teacher actually, which, I mean, you never know how these things are going to go, right?
That's right.
Because you're really changing the power dynamic.
Right. And this is the teacher who took the microphone.
Yeah.
So there are lots of X factors.
Yeah, a lot of X factors. And the head of the principal gave some feedback to that teacher. So she was a little more prepared. She met with the teacher, the kids, and then the principal wrote a letter to the entire student body, which included the teacher apologizing in her own words, that felt good. Like, I really got upset because what happened was really, like, she owned, like, what I did was wrong, but what was happening was wrong. I handled that wrong. I apologize for that. And I apologize to the Student Voice Council for that, for me taking
That's
that
amazing.
moment from them. So out of, like, the moment of, oh my God, this is like triumph and then tragedy. And then, like, this is really useful. This is really, like, in moments of real discomfort and anger, you can find ways to make this learning opportunities for both teachers and for students.
And it all started because of the way you framed that question. And you just hung a lantern right on that. And that's so smart and so powerful, because it really stops a person in their tracks, because people have a tendency to get revenge minded. And this is a way to kind of break that thought process. And that was really one of the most impactful parts of the keynote for me this morning, was the way you distinguish between respect and dignity. That's when, like, literally all the people sitting next to, we all just kind of gave those knowing looks, because it was just really that powerful. But for the folks who weren't there, can you just kind of, like, go through, like, what is the difference between respect and dignity, as you just kind of shared in that story? Because again, it's just such an important definition and differentiation.
Yeah. So respect and dignity are often conflated to mean the same thing, which is basically like treat someone well. But respect is really misused in schools, and it's actually used often. And I don't like to use the word weaponized easily, or I don't do it easily. It is weaponized in schools. That it really, when we tell kids to respect themselves, each other, their teachers. Like, I just had a teacher go over a letter that she had sent to a child who she was disciplining, and the word respect was 13 times in, like, one page of a letter. So respect in Latin means to admire someone's actions. It's actually about how someone behaves. It is not about inherently the position they have.
Right.
It is about admiring that somebody has gotten into a position. The assumption is because they have worked and handled themselves in a way that we now admire them. So the position of teacher and parent and a person in any kind of authority, there was this assumption that we admire them because of the work they have done, how they have conducted themselves. So that means that respect is earned.
Right.
And when young people say, I'm not going to give you respect until you give me respect, adults get their backs up. And
you're just supposed to get it with the title.
Exactly.
Right.
But the reality is that we all very much, especially right now, are having examples in our face all the time of people in positions of authority using that authority to take away the dignity, the inherent worth of other people. And then we're told to respect that person. We're told to respect what that person represents.
Right.
I disagree. Like, I am never going to tell a young person or anybody that they need to respect somebody that is abusing power. Now, do I respect the position of teacher, of uncle, of, grandmother, grandfather, politician, police officer, anything like that? Yeah, I respect the position of it. But if there is a person in that position who is abusing power, I am not going to respect that person, and I'm never going to tell that to kids.
Right.
Now, the thing that's the beauty of all of this that I talked about in the keynote is that showing someone respect and showing someone dignity actually looks exactly the same. But in your body, it feels totally different. So respect is about an imbalance of power in those moments, and dignity is about reclaiming the dignity of both people. And for young people who are constantly in situations where they are developmentally looking to see where they belong and where they fit, and does the person in a position of power take me seriously? Right. They're constantly battling those things. And so that's why it's so powerful for them. I don't think you can have any conversation with a young person about values, about anything you want them to internalize about how they behave, unless you actually pull these two words apart.
Right. It's so powerful when I'm working with students, when I'm working with teachers, and again, trying to, help support them in their growth and development. I often speak of like, okay, so you had this moment, but now what's the road to redemption? Which is really another way of saying like, where's the path to restore the dignity that
exactly.
is so essential, because they're young, they're 11, 12, 13, they make mistakes. We should anticipate that they're going to. Their prefrontal cortex is only half developed, maybe. So it's to be expected. The question is, how are we going to then respond to it after the moment is over? And then how do they kind of come back into our good graces? We have to leave the door open for them. But sometimes, and I guess it's a function of human nature, we like to slam the door because it's cathartic. Like, we feel the release. But like when you're working with students, you have to resist that temptation.
Yeah, or you need to take a pause and come back another day, right? I mean, there's plenty of students that that can be very frustrating to me. And having that pause is incredibly important. I think what young people are so motivated by and their brains can get really sophisticated when this happens, is when they're motivated to be not only included in a group, but that people in positions of power are really understanding their value to the group. Right. And when they feel that, they will work very, very hard. I just sort of fell into teaching. So I was doing things from the very beginning that I never knew would be like, how could you do this, right? And so when I first started writing, it only seemed natural to me that as I wrote, young people would tell me what I was doing that was right and wrong. It never occurred to me that I couldn't imagine writing a book about young people without young people helping me write the book. Right. And that's not focus groups. That's like, here's what I've written. Tell me where I'm wrong. And people constantly, my whole career, people have said to me, how can you get kids to do this? Kids who don't like to, you get kids to read a 250 page book. Are you kidding me? I'm like, yes, I do, because I'm saying to them, you are the experts. I need you. Right. I need you to do this. You are so important to this. Kids will do a lot when they think what they're doing is valued.
I couldn't agree with you more. And that's really at the heart of what my work is, which is really focused on student engagement and trying to kind of overcome this battle that we're against with all the distractions of technology and the world that we live in and AI and everything else. And, but my argument is that young people will dedicate hours and hours and hours and give their full selves to things if they find value.
Yes, exactly.
And it's giving them something back in return. The problem that we find in school is that one or both of those things is typically missing. They either don't see, or understand what it is that we want them to know and why we want them to know it. And they also don't understand the value that it has for them.
Well, and also we have teachers who say, or parents who say, well, you don't know why this is relevant right now, but it will be one day. Well, okay, that was actually never a thing. But right now, our children can very legitimately say, yeah, this thing that I'm learning right now, totally irrelevant for my future. So actually, your teaching needs to get up with the situation that I'm facing with this technology. And, if you say it like that, like I can, this thing of like, sometimes kids are obnoxious messengers. They are. It doesn't make them, true. But it doesn't make them wrong. It doesn't make them wrong.
Some of this, I guess, is coming off of the back of COVID, where there was a lot of distance learning. And I can't help but think, like, if you're a student and it's winter and you're waiting in the snow for the bus and you have to deal with that person on the bus and all those dynamics, and you survive that miraculously, you get to school, and then you sit down in the classroom and the teacher, fully with great intention, turns on a YouTube video for you. You can't help but wonder, like, I couldn't have watched this in my bed.
And not have to deal with all the things.
And not get teased, not get bullied, not get harassed, not have my pigtails pulled.
Not wrong.
Not wrong. Not wrong. And this is kind of where we are we're at this inflection point in education where I feel like we have to confront these very real questions and these very real problems. And it's just basically like, you have older children, I have older children, like, they don't need me for the things that they needed me for. So I have to either, like, I can fold up my tent and go, into fetal position and go cry, or I can try to restructure or reframe, like, what my new role as a parent of a 20-something is in order to still have relevance and value to
Yeah,
them.
absolutely. And I feel like education, this is just exposing the weaknesses that education always had. And it's just making us really uncomfortable. So we can do what you're saying. We can run away, yip about cheating and AI and
Right. They have to use paper and
right,
pencil,
or whatever, right? We can yip and yip and yip about that, which I think is ridiculous. And then the other, we have a choice to make because I really think it's revealing the weaknesses of the way we've taught for a real long time.
Mm-hmm.
And young people really do have a legitimate argument to say, like, yeah, I don't need to memorize. And I really didn't need to memorize really before, but I really don't need to now. And, if you're going to give me work that is like basic, I mean, just when children ask, why do I need to know this?
Mm-hmm.
That is not an obnoxious hormonal question.
Right.
That is a legitimate question, right? That we need to honor and say, this is why we are learning this. And if it's hard, it's hard. And we are going to get through it and be able to say, there is a reason for it. I've actually thought about it. And here's the reasons why. I'm not just going to give you a pithy kind of snide answer because nobody likes getting a snide answer, no matter how old you are. Right.
That's true. It's funny you mentioned that because my dad was a school administrator. And when I was in elementary school, on the first day of school, we had our ritual because we had to cover the textbooks, which meant cutting the wall-bound paper bag, right? Trying to take the part that doesn't have the oil stain on it from the food. Because my dad was a Depression baby.
Yeah.
And he was never going to spend money on like book covers. That was, I tried asking once. I learned the lesson the hard way. But anyway, so after we would cover the books, my dad would write down the publisher because he would go back to his school and see in their book class if they had that copy. And then every now and then I would luck out and to bring home the teacher's edition. So to be like 10 and have the teacher's edition, I was like superhuman, like Thanos level with all the Infinity Stones. Right?
That's cool.
And the analogy that I share with folks is that like today, every student has the teacher's edition. So now what?
Right.
Because they already have the ansers to everything. Right. Literally.
But they
don't necessarily understand what the answers mean.
Or what the consequences. Right. Exactly.
So there's just this need to reframe everything and rethink everything because if we don't, we're going to get left behind because this is moving.
We are being left behind.
That's fair.
And we are.
Fair.
I mean,
I was trying to be optimistic.
Well, no, I mean, the other part is like I live also in Spain, and so there's a lot more Americans now living in Spain, and so I had an opportunity to meet some people who had just recently moved to my husband's hometown, and have to say, I was really struck by their lack of curiosity about being in another country. They didn't speak the language. They didn't know the history. Spain had a very significant civil war. They had a dictatorship. That dictator, Franco, died in 1975. That's not that long ago. It impacts the country to this day. And several times I had experiences with Americans who had moved to Spain, ostensibly in their own mind for political reasons, and yet they're in another country and they're not curious about the country in which they are now residing. That's curious to me. And so I just don't think you get to play it both ways. Say it that way of like, you know where you are. Use your education to understand the world in which you're in.
And to me, that relates to our role in school because if we're not piquing curiosity in school, then how can we expect them to have those values moving forward out of school? Right. I don't know if you're familiar with Thomas Friedman's work.
No, of course.
When I first read The World is Flat, like I felt like the lights were being turned on. I was seeing the world for the first time in my life. And he has, I think it was in the second edition, he was had a chapter about schools, and he had this equation, CQ plus PQ is greater than IQ. And I have that like everywhere. Because I need a constant reminder. It was curiosity quotient plus passion quotient is greater than the intelligence quotient in the modern world. And that really speaks to what you're saying. Like, folks can know a lot of things, but how could they be in this new place and not have that general sense of curiosity and wonder?
Yeah. And a country that has included them, has given them a place to go, a sanctuary. They're leaving many of the people I ran into on the street in Valencia where I live were leaving this country. It wasn't like they literally had left this country. And I just came back a couple weeks ago. So I kept having this experience of people who are leaving the United States ostensibly because they were uncomfortable about being here. And I'm not taking away from that, but
Sure.
they are literally going to another country that is offering them sanctuary and they don't know about that country. I mean, come on. Like, we need to know where we are. And if you're going to have like strong political views about things, I think you need to be educated about them.
And it's also not like they didn't have the time to go down to the local library and search through the microfiche. Right? They could find out.
Spanish Civil War. Right.
You could watch a 2-minute YouTube video and be brought up to speed.
Exactly. There's a lot of good documentaries. Yeah. So, I mean, I really, the thing I think we've got to just really own is that young people, when they're apathetic, they don't want to be apathetic. I think there's a lot of like, kids are so apathetic, and they appear to be, many of them do, but they have good reason for it. And so we've got to get curious about it and then lean towards them of like, hey, why? Not like, oh, you're entitled and you're spoiled and you're addicted to your phones, but like, why? What's going on? And then if it makes us uncomfortable, because they're going to say things that make us uncomfortable, we got to be in that discomfort, because that's what being a grown-up is.
Right. And that speaks to really a lack of apathy. They have a craving. The only problem is we're not giving them the thing that they're craving. So they're going elsewhere, and they have access to it. Whereas when I was growing up, when you were growing up, we didn't really have many options.
Right.
So, okay, you have my attention, because what else am I doing? I already played tic-tac-toe with a friend, and I passed the note, so now I'm waiting for the note to come back. But that's why
it's so important about things like what you're doing, of like, being able to reach out to young people to be able to do this. I mean, we have to do this.
Right.
So
I have so many questions I want to ask you, and I want to be respectful of your time, but I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you a question about Queen Bees and Wannabes.
Okay.
Only because my daughter was the banker. My wife discovered your book when my daughter was going through middle school, and I read it and she read it, and we were trying to identify all the friends and who they were and everything else. But in this book, you brilliantly mapped out the inner workings of adolescent peer culture. And so in your opinion, what's the most overlooked way that peer culture undermines student engagement? And how can teachers or school leaders like me effectively intervene?
Well, I think the word drama is important, because I define drama as a conflict between two people that other people are being entertained by. And I think it's a really important across the board. I think it's important for administrators to be very clear with their students about your entertainment is not somebody else's embarrassment or humiliation. I mean, if that's it's a value that we need to be able to wholesale, be able to communicate to young people. And aligned with that is like no matter what position the students are in, I think all students need to understand that there's 3 different kinds of like messing with you. Like, one is that you're bonded, you like the person, you feel closer to the person because of it, you don't think about it afterwards. There's annoying kind of messing with you where you sometimes think about it, and then there's like malicious, harmful, teasing or whatever, and you think about it all the time. And I think it's really important to distinguish those, because that can happen in any group. And then the other part is that there's so much pressure on everybody, because you don't want to make the relationship awkward, to say what you really feel when your boundaries are being transgressed. And just being able to say that and normalize that for students, so that no matter where they are in the group, that they know that that is a really difficult social dynamic, complex social dynamic that stops you from being able to say what you really feel. And that impacts friendships. Like, how do you really know when you can trust somebody if you can't say when your boundaries being transgressed? So just being able to talk about that and normalize those things and put some words to that, I think it's the most important thing for an administrator, counselor, anybody who's teaching, to be able to understand and be able to actually in some way be able to communicate that with students.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it. So where can our audience find you?
Find me? Yes. God, who knows? I have no idea. I mean, if you really want to find out where I am, you go to my website and you go to engagements, and you can see the crazy amount of traveling that I do. Not sure how much longer I'm going to be able to keep this up, but it's my website, rosalindwiseman.com. And truly, if you want to see where I am, which really could be from Istanbul to Guyana to Brazil, I'm going there soon, you can find out where I am. Actually, I forgot. And in February, I'm going to be doing a couple of webinars on how to manage yourself with parenting conferences.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
So I'll definitely
Just
have to get the
decided to do
links
that.
from you, and I'll put them
Yeah.
on our show notes so everyone can have an
Yeah, I
opportunity to
just
join you.
decided to do that because I'm traveling so
That's
much
great.
that I can't do some of the things I used to be able to do. And so we're going to do that in February.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for
You're
joining us.
my pleasure.